Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. We'd love to have you call us while we're here, but that really would be, I wouldn't normally have to say that. You generally would know that we would want you to call while we're here. Right? Yeah. It seems.
But you can call anytime and you'll know what to do.
Yeah. Let's talk to Jason. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jason, what can we do for you?
Oh, yeah, I got a 2003 BMW. And it's getting fuel smell inside the cab.
Oh, no.
Is that a serious no?
Know.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Well, unless somebody's been drinking.
We checked, the fuel rail, put pressure on the fuel rail. It gets like 50 pounds.
Okay. So I've seen this before on a few cars. When I worked for BMW, we had it, but this BMW has nothing to do with the BMWs that I was working on. It's much newer, whole different design. But with the type of fuel systems that they still use to this day in some of those and some of the Nissans and things, when it's cold and the car's shut off, as the pressure bleeds down a little bit, you will get just a small seepage of fuel from the fuel lines up front by the firewall. And when that happens, I mean, it's so small, it's just a couple drops. But that seepage is enough that when you start the car and the pressure comes up, the engine runs, the heating ventilation system comes on, and it sucks those fumes right in the cabin, and you smell that raw gas smell just for a second, and then it goes away. Those can be super hard, or they are super hard to find, the cause of that. You've almost got to, I've even seen some people when we had them in, we put dye in the fuel, and then we got a UV light, same thing we do with air conditioning and engine oil leaks and coolant leaks. We use that UV light to check for any seepage on the fuel lines, and then even if it looks fine, but we see that there's dye coming through there, we know for a fact it's been leaking. We replace that section of the line, and then our problem usually goes away. And you can't really get close enough to smell it in a lot of these cases where it's wedged up behind the firewall. So what we do is when we would take that section out that had the dye on it and replace it, then you could smell it. Oh, it was on the bench, and it was like, yeah, that thing kind of smells like fuel. But it does not take much fuel to give you a raw gas smell inside. I mean, it's just like 2 drops would be enough to really smell bad, because that vapor is so pungent from that gasoline. But I think that's what you got going on. You have a super, super tiny fuel seep under that hood area, and it could even be something else too. It could be up on the engine, could be an injector O-ring or something leaking, but it's so tiny that you don't see it. As soon as the engine starts and you get any warmth at all, it just burns that right away, so you wouldn't see a leak. But it doesn't take much.
And then it actually is sucking it in the cab.
Yeah, the vent, because when you turn the vent on, it's pulling it right into the car. Instead of recirculate, it's pulling outside air on. If you put it on recirculate, your dash vent, before you start the car and then start the car up, more than likely you won't smell it, or not as bad, because it takes a second for the door to close. But once it's closed, it usually doesn't, you won't pull that into the cab of the vehicle. But it's definitely got to be a fuel leak under there. You'll just have to, you're probably going to end up with dye in the fuel and a UV light to narrow it down.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That sounds simple, but
difficult for somebody to say, where do I get the dye? You get the dye on Amazon. Where do I get the UV light? You get the UV light on Amazon. What's it going to cost me? Probably $50 for everything. And those dye and UV lights are awesome. Checking AC systems, they come with dye already in them. Just get the UV light, put the glasses on, you shine it around, go, oh, that's turning purple. You got a leak. Great. You go to the shop and say, hey, I shine my light on everything. Right here, it's lighting up. And I've had to add, refrigerant several times. I think it's leaking here because the UV light shines up. Same way with coolant. Where's that coolant leak? That 17 Silverado. Where's my coolant leaking? Oh, a little dye in the coolant, UV light, there it is.
There it is.
Find it, narrow it down. We do it all the time.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Laverne. You're on the End of the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yes, I was wondering about my car. I bought the car from a dealership, and it turns out that the whole frame underneath is rusted out. Is there anything that we can do for this car?
When you say the frame is rusted out, it's probably on this type of vehicle either the front subframe that they call a cradle or the rear subframe. Is that what's happening? One of those frames has been rusted through. You can put your fingers right through it?
Yes, and I think it's both front and back.
Well, how long have you owned this car? When did you purchase it from the dealership?
In June
Okay.
of last year.
Well, we haven't had any salt and corrosion protection put on the road that would rust a frame that much. Two things you should do. It can be fixed, yes. But the first thing you should do is check with your state, because I do not know what those laws are. But some states have laws pertaining to vehicle safety and what can be sold. Now, privately, that's one thing, but from car dealers, used car dealers, new car dealers, if there's something major like that, if it's so bad that the car is deemed not safe to drive, where you can put your hand right through this frame and it could be a hazard to have it on the road, you may be entitled to some kind of compensation to get you into a different car. I would ask those questions first. No guarantee, but there are some states that is required. You can't do that. So just check on that. But to fix it, what needs to be done, if anybody's going to put this car back on the road, you need to purchase a new subframe. If it needs a front and a rear subframe, it could get pretty expensive depending on what the car's value is. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But I've seen those cars that are in very nice condition, but both the frame is rusted out in front and rear. Some Toyota trucks had this problem too, and they just replaced the whole frame. So you could go to a place like our partner at Car Dash Part, purchase a front subframe and a rear subframe that are basically rust-free from an area of the country where they don't have any salt on the road to melt the ice, and they just get replaced. They go into a shop, they suspend the engine up, they take the suspension out and the cradle out. We take those cradles out to put engines in these cars all the time, and they're laying on the ground. And at times they've been so bad, we said, hey, we're going to sell you a cradle. Let's say it's $900 to get one shipped in. While we're doing the engine job, we throw the new cradle in it, put it together, get it aligned, and you're fixed. It's that simple. Now, if the body's rusted out, where it bolts to the body, that's bad.
The body and the interior is almost, it looks almost like it's new.
And we have seen that especially in the Saturns, and like I said, in those Toyota trucks, where the body will be perfect, rust-free, 100%, but that frame is rusted out because the metal it's constructed of is different than the body. It has different corrosion protection on it, and that salt and sand on the road will get up in there and completely rust it out very quickly, and the body's untouched. So check into that first, see if there's anything that can help you out as far as what the dealership might do for you. And then second, you might look into talk to your local mechanic and have them see about a good used frame online that they can purchase for you and how much that would cost to install.
Okay. And if I was looking for the frame, you said, what was the name of the site?
The company that we use, our partner, is called Car Dash Part. It's spelled CAR, then dash PART.
Okay. Okay. And who would I call here in Nebraska to find out if I
I would start, since Shannon would know exactly who to call, but he's at Barrett Jackson this week. Lucky guy. Anyways, so I would start with look up the Nebraska Used Car Dealers Association.
Okay.
If they can't give you an answer, they can tell you who can. So that'd be a great place to start. That's just a nice place right in the middle that you can call, and they'll say, you know what, call this place, or yes, we know that answer. We're going to help you out. They'll be able to help you one way or another.
Okay.
There you go, Laverne. Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That's a nightmare.
It is. It when you buy a car, and it's it's worse, I think, than if you buy a car and you drive it off the lot and there's no problems with it. You drove it for 3 days and the engine blows up. Hey, it happens. Sorry, it was a crapshoot, bad gambling, didn't work. Even if you had a used car inspection, it can happen. Look at your car you sold. The cam broke in half the same day, didn't it?
Yeah.
And you didn't know that.
Right.
We didn't know it, and we'd been maintaining it. It just happened. But with a rusted frame, if it's so bad you can put your fingers through the frame, that should have been spotted on a basic safety inspection. Even if a dealership does not do a full, most of these advertise like a 5 million point inspection or whatever, but still, we're going to raise it up. See if the wheels are falling off this car, if the tires are bad. Are the brakes even safe enough to sell this to somebody? Obviously, somehow this was missed, and it shouldn't have been missed, and now it's resulted in a car that somebody probably can't drive. It's not a super expensive car. It's an '08 Saturn, so it's an affordable car that the owner probably really can't afford to just say, well, I'll just throw this one away and spend another several thousand to get a replacement. It shouldn't have to be done. So hopefully she can find some kind of help in there.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Larry in Illinois. Larry, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
I've got a 2004 GMC Canyon, and the instrument panel has gone dead on me.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, here's the thing. The reason I say uh-oh is you're not going to get the mileage correct no matter what you do. You can get a different speedometer for it. You're going to need a whole instrument cluster for it. This happens a lot on these. We've seen it often on our own trucks here at Nordstrom's. Customers have had this happen. But you can't get when you get a different speedometer, your mileage is going to be different, and it's going to be affected. That and the BCM talk to each other on these trucks. So if you're not worried about that, hopefully it's got enough miles you don't have to worry about it. And you can just put the sticker on the door that says inaccurate mileage. It'll tell you what your old mileage was compared to the new mileage, and then people can add or subtract. But you'll have to replace that cluster in order to fix that problem. It's just a thing where they'll go completely dead, and maybe every few days you'll start it up and go, oh, it's working, and then it quits again.
Well,
so that's what you got to do is that has to be replaced. We've seen I bet we've seen 50 of them in the last 10 years.
That's probably an expensive job too, right?
A good certified used one's probably going to be maybe $300 installed. I don't know what the current market price is on one. I haven't replaced one in about 3 years, and they've gone up. Everything's gone up quite a bit, but they were about that $300 range for a good certified used one installed. So that's not too bad. Check with Car Dash Part, our partner, and see if they've got one available, and go from there.
Larry, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And if you subscribe there and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Kent Jennings, congratulations from all of us under the hood and our friends over at Berkeley One Classic, celebrating 50 years of collector car insurance, and Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu. Now's the time to get trained, learn more about automotive field, being a technician, working on any kind of car you can imagine. Plus, they have NASCAR Technical Institute. You can get into that as well if you. That's exciting. We haven't talked about that in a while, but machinist, CNC machining, welding, marine mechanics, all sorts of stuff. UTI.edu.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Utah and talk to Dave. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dave, what can we do for you?
Well, my son's got a 2001 Chevy 1500 with the 5.3, and he just replaced the knock sensors under the intake manifold.
Yeah.
He put it back together, and he busted the purge line that goes up to the front of the intake manifold. So he bought that, and he goes to start it, and it starts for, 10, 15 seconds, and then it just dies. And you can kind of give it gas and get it run, but then it kind of like starts popping like it's got a carburetor.
Yeah.
I told him I sprayed carb cleaner along the intake manifold. I don't know that his gaskets are leaking. Looks like it's got the little clips to hold them in place. But I just don't know for sure what it would be.
Well, a couple things here. It sounds like a vacuum leak, but I need to know, does this have a vacuum line from the booster to the manifold or not? Does it have an electric pump, a hydro boost on it, or does it have that vacuum line in the back? Because if it does,
I don't know.
See if it's got a vacuum line. If it does have the vacuum line, make sure it's plugged in.
Okay.
Because I've had so many of those that I found with the line just laying off after we put an engine in. I went, whoops, we're trying to start it going, that's weird. What's going on? I hear that sucking sound under there, and it's like my wallet emptying, and I plug that in. It starts right. It works perfect. That 3/8-inch hole will keep it from running, and it'll just go and not run. So, or if it's got a hydro boost and it doesn't have that vacuum line, there is a plug that plugs in that hole, and that may have come out somehow when that was taken apart. I'm doing knock sensors on one of these trucks right now in the shop myself. And those are things I look for when I put it back together. The intake gaskets, unless one of them had slipped down when it was going together and just didn't they clip on to the bottom of the intake. So they're hard to mess up. But if something happened and the clip I saw one where the clip was bent down and it held it up. So when the intake was tight, it held it up to a gap, and that'll give you about a 3/8 gap too, and it will not run. So the first step is just look at the big vacuum line, and then what we do is use a smoke machine, and you don't have access to that. So I would say, you get a cheap one. They're about $30 online.
Can I just use the fog machine from my DJ equipment?
You could.
Yeah.
Because you got a fog machine. You'd have so much fog, you'd be like, I want to play Village People something.
Yeah. Bring it over, Dave.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
man. What about the idle air valve?
No.
Did that mess it up? No.
No. That shouldn't. On that, not enough to make it pop and bang and do that. It would run like 4,000 RPM. Maybe if it was stuck wide open, it'd fire up and run open. But sounds like you've got an unmetered air leak. Idle air control is metered through that mass airflow sensor. So make sure that the mass airflow sensor is connected, the tube's connected the whole way, and that it's not full of fly wings or something like that on the sensor, because that'll do that too. You might try unplug that mass airflow sensor, start the car up, so you'll start the truck, and when you start it, if it runs good, and it may run good enough that you can hear a vacuum leak, because if it's not going through that mass airflow sensor, it's not concerned about the metered air and unmetered air. It's just going to run, and then you could find the vacuum leak. Sometimes we do that trick. I had a girl come in a couple days ago that was frantic, was traveling through town she was like 300 miles to our north, and she's like, I got to get to the hospital, see my mom, and my car just died at the gas station. It won't start. And I went over there and scanned it real quick, and the mass airflow sensor was showing 500 for a reading, and it should never be that high. So I just unplugged it, started it up, said, there you go. Drive it to town. When you get there, go put a mass airflow sensor on it. She went, a what? And I said, just write it down. She says, yeah, my cousin works for this place. And I said, tell him we said it needs a mass airflow sensor. So I never heard from her again. So I hope she got there safely. And
does that help you out there, Dave?
Yeah. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Wisconsin and talk to Dane. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dane, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. So I'm working on my neighbor's 2019 Sierra AT4. I believe it's got the 5.3 V8. So basically it's thrown two codes it's a P060, which is no comm to the airflow sensor, back to the airflow sensor again. And then 1346, which is a LIN bus error related to the airflow sensor. So I did the quick and easy, swapped in a new sensor, which I didn't think was going to work, and it didn't. And so then I went through the whole GM Diagnostic sheet on how to test your pins at the plug at the airflow sensor, and I had my scan tool hooked up, and all my readings were reading between 7 to, when you throttle up to 17. So it seems like the airflow sensor is working. It read it through the ECM, but it still throws the engine code for those two codes. I guess, what am I missing?
Whatever the problem is. If you've done that, you've done the diligence in what you need to do for diagnostics. You've put the sensor on it. You've checked the resistance. All that's good. You're verifying that hopefully the reading is accurate and it's not lying to you. It could be. The only way you would know, it may be substituting a value, and the only way you'd know would be as if you plugged in an oscilloscope right at the engine computer end, so you know it's reading correctly, and you compared the readings of that scope to the data table to see exactly what the number should be. So if it says, this many hertz should read out at 17, this many hertz should read out at 45. That's the only way you know for sure. The next step would be is if it's lying to it, if it's getting the right frequency into the computer, but that number is wrong on your computer, you may need a computer. We have seen
and so that's where
of them
that's where the GM Diagnostic. I followed all the values, step by step, and then it gets to the point where if you've got all these values correct to here,
replace
it's
CCM.
CCM related.
Yeah, I've never loved that where it just says blah 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 replace PCM, and then you put a PCM in it and it still does it.
Right. So I guess the other issue that comes up is when the engine light comes on, the oil pressure gauge drops, and is that related to the LIN bus error?
Is a bus. You have got a bus error if you've got if you're dropping pressure, something else is going on. It sounds so you could have another sensor on this vehicle that is not working that is causing this error. So let's say you've got a problem with an O2 sensor that is shorted. It could be causing an error in this system. So what I would do first is look at all the other sensors that you haven't looked at yet because they're not giving codes and compare them all to each other. Look at the rear O2 sensor on the driver's side compared to the front. Look at the rear on the passenger side compared to the front. And then, compare both backs, compare both fronts, look at the fuel trims, look at every sensor on the vehicle and look if you see something that is really whacked out that's not right, then fix that sensor first and see if your other problem goes away. That happens a lot with us. We see one sensor that'll cause another sensor to go down.
Okay, because that was kind of it was either the ECM's bad or I had talked to a GM tech that said there was possibly wires touching somewhere, and I left my meter hooked up and I started pulling on harnesses and nothing would change the value on the meter. So
that's the way to do it.
I don't know what else to try.
Look at the other sensors. I think you may have another sensor causing this one to fail. Computers are rare to fail. We've only sold a few of them for these, but they have failed. We've seen them go down.
Is there a software update that causes that possibly?
That's the first step. If you're going to put a computer in, you've already got your software ready to go on your laptop. You load it up, see if it fixes it. If it does not, then we go with the other computer and load it up.
Okay. Yeah, because if I clear the code, it goes away for about 4 seconds, and then the oil pressure comes back on. And then when the engine light comes back after 4 seconds, then the oil pressure goes back away, which it still reads pressure on the scan tool, just not on the IPC.
Sure.
So, all right, well, I'll try the sensors and see if I can figure something else out.
Dane, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That is, how far are we from the computer, the codes just actually telling us what's wrong?
They are throwing, I got to throw that name in there, but they are throwing AI into vehicles now. And the 25 and up, there are more and more of these where they're looking out to find, they do self-diagnosis more than just read a code. They look at the whole thing and say, based on all this and, 50 years of knowledge of electronics, this is the most likely cause of this problem. But what it's going to do, it's going to report it to the dealer and tell you, go into the dealer and have them check it out.
It's going to order a part for you.
We're not going to tell you what's wrong with it, but the dealer will have that info.
Right.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. Now we're going to go down to Texas and say hello to Preston. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Preston, what can we do for you?
Hey, I just got a question about some batteries they had replaced on my 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Doesn't surprise me.
And anyways, they had died on me, had them jumped off, but when I was sitting there idling, letting it charge back up or whatever, but I was afraid to turn it off. And I sit there for 2 hours before I took it to the shop to get the batteries changed, and I had the batteries changed. And when I had it changed, they said it was all good, and they said it only needed one battery, but they went ahead and placed both batteries now, the small one and the big one. And when they did, they said it's ready to go. When I got ready to drive off, it was ready to shut down. It says, please pull over. So I turned around right quick, went back to the shop, and they checked it out, and found out that it had a blown fuse on the positive lead where you jump.
Okay.
And it said 150 amp fuse had blown. And of course that feeds about 4 or 5 other fuses.
Right.
So anyways, when they got that replaced, they said we're good to go. But now I have the A with a circle around it, and plus I have a motor symbol above the temperature gauge. This I put my diagnostic deal on it, plugged it in, and it said U0415.
It's a body code.
And when it said that, and I looked it up, and it says control module. And then I looked it up again, and it says, well, if you want to clear the symbol, disconnect the ground, wait 20 minutes, and then put it back on. But I didn't do that. I went ahead and called my technician, and he said he's going to bring it back Monday, and he would wipe out the codes, and hopefully it'll be all right. But I wanted y'all's opinion.
Well, hopefully.
Why do they do all that?
Do they know why that fuse blew?
Nope.
Yeah, that something shorted to blow that fuse. That's a major concern. But now this battery problem you had, this is huge. This is happening on a ton of these vehicles. Yours is a 19, so the failure of that AGM start-stop battery is a possibility. We've seen a number of them. They take a lot of load. That's why they're an AGM battery. A lead-acid battery would never take that type of abuse of start, charge, stop, the whole thing. So they fail. But we're seeing batteries fail in the 24 and 25 models. They say that they got them all fixed in 24, but I've got a daughter with a 25 that it failed. So these are being replaced a lot. So if you're out there and you've got a problem with a stop-start system and they say you need a battery and it's under warranty, don't be surprised. But with this one here, I think something shorted. Those U codes, that's a communication error code, and hopefully they'll just be able to clear those codes. You'll get those codes if that fuse is blown. But I hope it's not because something was shorted during the replacement and it's killed a module. Now
well,
the Jeep.
I asked him a question, and anyways, I asked him a question about, well, maybe you crossed the positive and negative.
That shouldn't hurt.
No, there's no way. He said there's no way they could do that because the cables won't reach.
Yeah, but if you had them disconnected, it would be more like if somebody hooked a jump pack to it up backwards, which would be extremely rare to dealer because they wouldn't need to because they'd just be putting a new battery in it. But I can tell you, I've got a couple customers myself with these 19 Jeeps, and they can be a nightmare once that battery's disconnected. We've had some where we've had to disconnect them, let them drain down, reconnect them, recharge them, clear codes like 5 to 10 times in a row before everything straightened out. And then they did. They didn't cost anything. We just did that. It was fixed, and off they went, and they're still working. But when the battery goes dead, look out, because they can get confused and do weird stuff. But that fuse being blown, that I question. So
that's a major issue.
Yep. So, yeah, get it back to the dealer, and hopefully they can just clear it for you.
Preston, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Carol. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Carol, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I've got a 2012 Acadia, and the heating cooling fan
in the front does not seem to work on high. I'm wondering if that's a problem with the motor. Can that fan motor just be replaced, or the rear fan is definitely, I have a high on that, but in the winter I have a hard time clearing the windshield because it just doesn't blow.
Doesn't blow hard.
Right.
That when the low speed functions fail, it's usually because the blower motor is pulling too many amps and burning out the resistor on the lower speeds where they've got to dissipate heat in order to do that. When the high speeds fail on these, it's usually the high blower relay that's part of that resistor has just failed. So the blower, it needs to be tested when they replace the resistor. And if the amp draw is good, then it just needs a new resistor typically. If they find out it's drawing too many amps, they're going to have to put a blower motor in it and a resistor. But either one of them, when they do them as a pair or separately, they're really not a huge expense, and they're not too bad to do in one of these vehicles. We've done a number of them for this exact problem, and we've got them in, got them out, and they were a pretty quick repair for us.
Well, you may get it in.
Okay.
I get it fixed. I'm just worried about a snowstorm or ice storm, and then I can't see out my windshield. So.
Right. Well, hopefully we don't have any. We haven't had one. I can't believe it. Knock on wood.
Don't. What are you doing?
Don't say that.
Right.
Yeah, I know it.
I'm with you, Carol.
You know what? We can have like a 4-foot snowstorm, like the second week of May, that's gone in one day. Wouldn't that be great?
I would like just like an inch of snow every few days.
No.
Just to cover.
Just enough that I can have to shovel and build up ice.
No, an inch you can let sit. You can about, I'd say up to 2 inches. You can just drive over it. It'll be fine. Carol, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I am surprised every time I get in my car, like the last week, 10 below. You can't, I sit in the car and the whole thing sounds like it's going to fall. It creaks and groans and makes noises, but it starts and runs.
25 degrees below zero. We had a car sitting out yesterday. We had a car sitting outside for 5 days in a row. It didn't start. It was dead. The battery was dead. I had to put a new one in, and that battery was brand new less than a year ago. So I had to replace it. But the other one started. I had the Camaro out because it's not snowy, right?
Right.
Usually it's in storage. I went to start it, and I hit the remote start button, and I listened to see what it would do. That's when I made that video on warming up the car. When I cranked it, it went. I was like, whoa, she's cold. That oil is like frozen molasses.
Let's go to Missouri and talk to Ed. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ed, what can we do for you?
Good morning. Several months ago, I called in about a 2013 Ford F-150 that my son-in-law has that would randomly just die and not start. And then after a while, it would start. It's throwed no codes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we took it to the Ford dealer, and they spent a week, and it would not replicate the problem. And you gave me a temporary, let's see, never mind. I figured it out, and I wanted to share it with you.
Okay.
It was the starter relay, and it would work perfect 90% of the time. But I drove it one day, it died. I rolled to the side, swapped out that relay, and it's never had a problem since. I didn't know. Do relays reset themselves?
No. And a starter relay should only be for starting. It shouldn't have anything to do with it once it runs. But
Unless it's feeding back.
What did you swap that relay with? A different relay?
No, I just went to the next one over, and maybe it's not the starter.
That's what I'm saying. Did you pull the root and then just swap those two relays?
Yes.
Okay, so the starter relay was probably the good one, and you probably replaced the relay that was bad. It's probably an ignition relay. So you probably you probably put that one you thought was the starter. I mean, if you pulled out the starter relay, because when you turn it to start, it works most of the time. If it's just now and then that it dies and doesn't. Yeah. So, well, you fixed it. That's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I went ahead and put a new relay in it. But, all right, now you've got me puzzled. Do I get credit for finding the fix?
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
son-in-law thinks I'm a hero now.
Yeah. Keep on that. And then if it breaks again, you can go, what?
Well, we got to train that new generation. Say, I called the Under the Hood show, and they assisted me. So here's their number, and you look them up on YouTube.
Yeah. I could not believe it. I'd spent months, trying to make it do it, and he would go to the grocery store and it wouldn't start. And or he'd pull in someplace at Quick Trip, and then it would die. And
it only does that when you're somewhere else or you need to be somewhere. It doesn't do it when you were going to go out and just run to the store on a Saturday at 10 a.m. and you can wait all day. That's not when it does it. It only does it when you need the car to start. Ed, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's I have to say, I love calls from Missouri, and I'll tell you why. Because we get calls from all over the country, all over the world, actually. And sometimes you know what you're going to get. Missouri is one of those where you don't know what you're going to get. Northern Missouri and Southern Missouri are two different parts of the country.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that. That's exciting.
Well, Chris, we tied our record for the most calls in an hour.
Because, why did we do that? Why were we able to do that?
Because Shannon's not here.
And Shannon
But we almost broke it. We have two more up there, but we almost broke it, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
But, we didn't talk fast enough, but we're gonna add a couple more in the next hour.
That'll do it for hour one. Hour two is coming up. 866-594-4150. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us, Under the Hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is not here to answer your questions today, so we got more time. We're gonna try and get a record number of calls in. We tied it recently without Shannon, so let's see if we can crank them out. I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls. To do that, we need you to call us 866-594-4150. And we're on our way. We got somebody holding over the music, so let's go right to Rick. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Rick, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I got a 2012 Honda Odyssey, and I'm struggling with the courtesy light on it. It hasn't come on when you open the door for a long, long time, and all of a sudden, the other day, it just started working. In the past, when it doesn't work, you open the door, there's a little light down at the bottom of the driver and passenger side door. Those have come on, but none of the rest of the lights have worked. There's a switch up in the console area in the ceiling in the center of the van. And it's like a 3-position switch: off, it's got the courtesy position, and then on. And that courtesy position just doesn't want to work 99% of the time. And I'm scared to turn it off because it's like, I don't think it's going to work again if I turn it on. So I don't know if it's in the switch. It's so intermittent, it seems really weird to me.
We've seen a few of those switches on the ceiling go bad. It could be the switch. If you say you moved it around and it's come and gone, that'd probably be the first place we would start. We'd take the switch out, I'd get a multimeter out, and I'd check each position and make sure it's working right. But, yeah, I've had a number of them with that switch go bad up there. They get dust in them and collect some moisture and humidity and stuff, and they just fail. So it's likely that's what's going on because you have 4 doors in order to turn those lights on. And if it doesn't work with any of the doors when it's broken, but when it is working, all 4 doors in the rear work, it's probably the switch. So we would aim that direction.
Okay. Are there any relays or anything associated with that system that could be bad as well?
No, that's all a function of the body control module in that.
Okay. Well, I'll check into that switch then.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much for the call, Rick. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Got a question here that came in on the chat. I have a 2016 300S. My wife wiped out the mirror. Oh, that would be great. If I've taken out 2 mirrors over our marriage, and I can't live them down, which is rightfully so. One of them wasn't my fault, but there isn't a new one to be found in the USA, so I had to find a used one. I can't believe I can't buy a new one from Chrysler. So there's a 10-year-old vehicle, 9-year-old vehicle, 10, and that part isn't available. That's not that weird, is it?
No, it's not. I've got cars that are 2 years old that are still under warranty. Well, let's just say you got this is 2025, and you've got a 2020, we'll say an early 2024 model. You may not be able to get parts for it. Now, by law, they have to replace those parts.
Right.
If it's under warranty, they have to come up with them, and they might have some somewhere, but they have to do it somehow. But if you have one that's over 36,000 miles, so it's out of the warranty, they are not required to provide you with any parts in any way. People used to say, oh, I got to keep parts for 10 years. No, they don't. That's always been a rumor. It's a myth. It's not true. They only have to keep the car fixed under warranty.
Okay.
After that, they don't have to provide any parts. And there are many cars, Chris, that parts are not available. So you've got to get them used. So if it's a part, let's say this mirror for this car, they had 1,000 of them that were still in production, are still there on the shelves once the cars were done being made. They put them on the shelves for sale. They're back at the plant in Detroit. Well, 5 years go by, and they still haven't sold every one of those mirrors. So they've sold them off to surplus companies like Nordstrom's here at Automotive for recycling yard. Well, they said, we didn't have a demand to sell them.
Right.
And we have to buy 10,000 or 50,000, whatever it was at a time. We're not going to buy another run of those.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be crazy. We'd waste our money. We'd have a bunch of them on the shelf for what? So they do not make them. And that goes with any parts. It could be mirrors. It could be an engine part that's specific to this type of engine. Usually, thankfully, engines fit so many different vehicles that they carry over, and they do stock those parts. But small body parts like that, it's very common that you will not find that part after it's out of warranty.
Which is often why I learned this when I was a kid from my brother, which is often why you can buy a very expensive, rare car for cheap, because it's not going to be fixable.
To get. It's hard to get parts, or the part is super, super
right
expensive. We saw a Lamborghini on a rebuilt, repairable site that had a broken window and a scratched up hood in the front and a broken front wing because it had gone through a barbed wire fence, and it was pretty affordable. I mean, it was a car that would be selling for like $100,000 used. This was 10 years ago or so, but it was selling for like $22,000, and it was basically a parts car because just the windshield for that car was an enormous price. The hood was so far out of touch, you were just like, you'd be crazy. So somebody probably bought it for parts for something else. But yeah, you're right, Chris, very expensive.
866-594-4150. Shannon, did you buy anything yet?
I have not bought anything yet.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I had an inkling, I was behind the scenes. I was behind the stage when I was watching a really nice 1980 Trans Am sell, and I think I'm gonna have to check it out. I didn't see the car in person, but I think it was a really good buy.
Shannon Nordstrom is on the phone with us. We had some logistical issues here that made us unavailable to go to Barrett Jackson, but you were like, that doesn't include me. I'm going. So how are things at Barrett Jackson? The spring, is this the spring? This is the winter show. What is this? What do we call this?
I think you'd call it winter.
Okay.
It's I know I just left cold weather there, and last night it was in the low 40s here, so it feels like winter in Phoenix, I think. And so we're down here just for a couple of days, and we got out there last night for probably an hour and a half or 2 hours of the show by the time we got into town and got situated. And it was great to get back in there, and you could definitely feel the difference between their fall sale with 1,000 vehicles, give or take, and this winter sale where they're going to be selling over 2,000 vehicles. Just just in driving around the parking lots, there was just row after row after row of large motor coaches, very expensive motor coaches that were camped out back. People, have came into town to do their looking and they're buying and selling or whatever they might be doing, and just the tents that had been put up that were the area that we went last time for the gala when we got there. Those are all tents now full of vehicles that are either sold or selling. Definitely, you can see and feel the difference between the two shows. That's for sure.
That is it was interesting to see that it starts earlier. It's going harder right for days before it was when we went for the fall show.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun just to feel the buzz in the building. When we were there was no really high dollar stuff selling. A lot of really nice vehicles, and of course we identified another one that we thought would be fun if the price is right just to play with. And it was a little BMW Iata. I took a picture of it and put it on our Under the Hood Show Facebook page. My wife Tammy's standing next to it, and that vehicle is just a little tiny bugger, manual transmission. It's just the neatest looking little thing. It'd be fun just to bop around with.
An Izetta?
And you wouldn't want to go very far.
Oh, wow.
I said it wrong.
Front door? Yeah.
And yep. Oh yeah. And it brought $30,000.
So they usually bring big bucks.
It was just a neat little car. It got a lot of attention. That was fun to see.
We could have put it in here on the studio desk.
Next to it.
Yeah.
It would have fit on the studio desk, I think, Russ. It would have been really close to fitting.
There's
probably the neatest thing that happened when we got down here, though, is that we ran into Tim, and Tim was the one that helped us get our hard line we needed right before we did our show down there in the fall.
Right.
We had to make our phone system work right, and got talking to Tim, and just happened to run into him, and he was just said, "Hey, you want to go behind the scenes?" And so he took us back behind the stage, and we got to walk into a amazing. I'm sure it's like a lot of behind the scenes things on a big production, but this village of huge cords and monitors and people, and it was just like a little den full of tech people just working away, and just some of the technology that he told us about that they implement to make this production look like it does when it comes out on either their live stream or like FYI network where they broadcast. How they do it is just incredible. Just one little nugget I think I can tell you and not get in trouble is that they've got it timed out even to help them with their transitions with the software, that when the gavel hits at a certain decibel, it triggers electronics to do certain things.
Wow.
They've got magnets that are in the floor that can sense when an engine goes over it, that can help them get an electronic pulse to signal another electronic thing to switch. And that's just a few of them.
That's cool.
That are happening behind the scenes. And so really, really neat. We're going to head back over there this morning, just in a little bit, but thought I'd call and check in with everybody and say hello. And we'll send a few more pictures and see if I can get a few interviews. We're doing a few interviews. We're doing a meet and greet tonight on behalf of Berkeley One Classics. And so we're going to go over and meet some of the customers that have Berkeley One insurance.
Cool.
I threw it through an agency that's out here in Phoenix. And so sounds like it's going to be a small group of, 15 to 30 people. And we're going to go out there and say hello and talk automotive and talk under the hood with them for a little while.
All right. Represent us well. All right.
Well, I hope I can do my best.
Okay. Good luck. I hope it all works out for you while you're down there. And you're
Chris,
40 degrees.
Chris, last night you could have gotten yourself, I heard Russ talking about, or you might have said that these vehicles, that they get to a certain point that, it's hard to conceptually understand buying them because the upkeep, the maintenance, where you're going to find parts, that sort of thing. Last night they sold a Maybach 57. Mercedes made the Maybachs. They're big, heavy sedans. They're kind of like little miniature limousines almost. And that Maybach was $300,000 new, and I believe they were working on selling that thing. If I want to say they got up close to high 30s or somewhere in there, maybe low 40s. But it was a $300,000 car new, and it sold for less than $40,000.
Oh boy.
And so it kind of it speaks to that
that sort of thing.
Russ wouldn't have allowed me
And
to
it was
get
beautiful.
it.
And it was beautiful.
Shannon, thanks for the call, and go have fun, all right?
All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Keep going. It sounds like the show's going great.
Shannon Nordstrom from Scottsdale, Arizona, on the End of the Hood Show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the End of the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Oregon and talk to Brad. You're on the Under the Hood Show, Brad. What can we do for you?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a Chevy Traverse, a 2020, just over 40,000 miles. Got it just semi recently. Been working really well until recently. I've been driving and right around 2,300 RPMs, regardless of the gear. Something seems to just kind of rattle for a brief moment. It sounds kind of like a high tin or something. It kind of rattles briefly and then goes away until the next gear and so on. That continued on for a little bit. I was kind of thinking it might be like a heat shield, or like it sounded like something was just loose, so I wasn't super worried about it. And then recently in the mornings, it's pretty cold here at the moment. In the mornings, it'll rattle now when I start the car. So when I first start the car, something's just kind of rattling underneath there somewhere, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. And amongst all of this, also one time I turned the car on, and even the engine light came on briefly, and then I turned it off and turned it back on, and it went away. That only happened one time. But it's just this funny rattling that only happens almost exactly at 2,300 RPMs and no other time. No power loss. Nothing else going on with the car. That's showing me that something's going on. So I'm not sure if it's like something to do with the oil or I'm just not really too sure what could be going on. So I was planning on taking it in because I just am exhausted my little bit of car knowledge. But I just thought I'd call you and see what you might think. So
I got this one, Russ. You described it perfectly, Brad. It's basically a pie tin. I've had it on numerous vehicles, and here's what you need to do to fix it. You jump in anytime I'm wrong. You go under there, you find the one that's rattling, and you bend it a little to make it not do that. And that's pretty much it. And I've actually, Brad, had the same thing in that this rattle, it is a heat shield, right? Most likely.
Yep.
And I've had that too with our Prius, where every once in a while I start the vehicle, it rattles like crazy, it makes noise like crazy, the engine lights come on, I turn the engine off because I'm worried, and when I turn it on, it doesn't ever do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, it's basically a pie tin under there that is a heat shield that is loose and just resonating at that point.
Just too close to another piece of metal that it's trying to protect, but it's only got a small gap in there, like 3/16 of an inch. And if it's just not right, it'll rattle. So you got to identify it, find out where it is. And if it's broken, it'll have to be tack welded back on there so it's secured. But if it's just too close, it can just be, like Chris said, tweaked a little bit, and that usually takes care of it. But we see that a lot. That's normal. The other thing it could be would be a broken catalyst bed in the catalytic converter, which is rare, but it could happen. But that would probably be vibrating at other RPMs besides just right there.
I think I've had this on every vehicle I've had.
I've had them on mine too.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to adjust them.
Including, this will make you feel a little better, Brad. I was having major problems with one of my vehicles. We had done a million different things on it. Just every time I turned around, something else was going bad. And I had this, I pulled out, it was actually, I had just brought it to you, and I pulled out and I was like, it's making a terrible noise. And one of your guys looked under there, reached his hand in for less than a second, and it was fixed and never did it again because he could tell right exactly where it was and what it was doing. This, I don't think, is anything you're going to have to worry about, Brad.
Oh, okay, that's great to hear. I was thinking I wasn't too worried about it until the engine light came on that one morning. When I was thinking, oh gosh, this is something.
Yeah, that's weird.
A lot worse. So that's good to hear because I was kind of poking around, but I would love to be able to try to fix it myself, but I'm, I don't know. I easily have access to each one of them. I guess some of them you can get your hands on, but other ones you have to remove something. And so yeah, I just wasn't sure.
Well, good luck. Thanks a lot, Brad, for the call. But one quick thing. Right? That engine thing might be different. That light.
Could be, but it could be just the
Yeah.
cold, too, and some
Yeah.
weird stuff that happened.
Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Carl. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Carl, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, thanks for your show that you put on every week. I enjoy it and try to listen to it. I got a friend that's got a 2012 GMC Acadia SLT, and she's been having a battery draw ever since she's got this vehicle. It draws down in the winter time when it gets cold. She can drive it all summer. It charges. And then once it gets cold in the winter, something's drawn the battery down where after it sits a day or so, it'll not want to start. And she's replaced the battery numerous times. So I just thought I'd call in to see if you guys had some information on that.
Does it have any aftermarket accessories at all on the vehicle? A camera, a remote start, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I took it for a drive the other day, put my meter on the jump ports up underneath the hood, and it was charging at 15.4 volts.
Okay.
Other than that, I just kind of trying to figure it out for her here.
See, on something like that, you definitely want to make sure that there is never anything plugged into the accessory power sockets, like a radar detector, a phone cord, even a phone cord not plugged into a phone. So many people I see leave those things plugged in when we're putting an engine in their car or a transmission. They've got it plugged in, the little red lights on, but it's not plugged into a phone. And then I go out there to get in it, and the battery's dead because after 4 or 5 days, a week or so, it's dead because it keeps power active in all the systems. It keeps the system from going to sleep because it sees that circuit's active, so it keeps them going. That can do it. Otherwise, any module in the car that's staying awake can cause this system to run dead like that. If they've already put a battery in it, you could probably eliminate that at least the first time the battery was the problem. It's probably bad now. If it's going dead, it's no good. But yeah, I would. You're
like
gonna.
She's got a head bolt heater, and she tries, even when it's cold, has that plugged in on it, and it's still, it'll drain it down. But if she starts it every day, goes out there and starts it, she won't have a problem to make sure it gets run every day. But then once it drops below zero, it's pretty much a no-go because obviously it's so cold for the battery.
Right. Yeah, you're going to have to find out where that's at using an amp meter and checking every circuit one at a time, pull the fuse, disable it, and see which circuit is causing it to go down. It's going to take a little time, but, in the meantime, before it gets fixed, I would strongly suggest getting a battery maintainer device like Optima's got a nice D400 unit that's good for charging and maintaining just about anything in the world.
Yeah.
You got to have it maintained to protect your battery and so you can start it.
And those power cords, sometimes I know my daughter had one that glowed faintly when it was powered, and she just never noticed because she was just in there in the day after she had gotten it. She had never noticed it until one night, and that was the same thing. Just a tiny little draw, but it was constant. And if you didn't notice it,
powers the other systems up.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel, and if you subscribe there and join the Hoodie Fan Club, you can win a hoodie.
Like Janie Riggins, congratulations from our friends over at Berkeley One Classic, celebrating 50 years of collector car insurance. And Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu.
866-594-4150. You can call that number, by the way, 24 hours a day, and if we don't answer, you can leave a message, and we'll call you when we're doing the show. Let's go to Montana right now and talk to Daniel. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Daniel, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. I love the show. When I called left a message, and I had a question about my Expedition, but I didn't end up fixing it. And so I do have another question. I have a 2000 Chevy K3500, and I have a vibration in the rear end that we cannot figure out. we have already we've rebuilt the differential. We've put new carrier bearing in, new U joints. I purchased a used new driveline, and because you can't get any new parts for these vehicles anymore, which is my question to you guys. I'm sick of spending money on this, and it's a farm truck. I'm not using it like on the highway that much and stuff, and so it's that big of a deal. But like, should I look at getting like a different rear end from like a 2500 or like? So that's my what should I do?
Well,
I don't want to spend any more money on it.
First, you got to find the vibration and find out exactly where it's coming from. My guess is it's coming from the pinion back there. Something is not right. The yoke is out of line a little bit, so the drive shaft's moving up and down. Something's going on. And the only way to check that is with a dial indicator with those wheels off the ground, so you can turn the drive shaft, and then you see if that thing is moving up and down. And if it's moving up and down, it'll do that. You could take the drive shaft off and change the position of it and try different positions until you can get it pretty close to straight. We've had a number of them that way where they'll move up and down a few thousandths, and we pull the drive shaft off, rotate it 180 degrees, check it again. And the ones that have multiple bolts on a drive flange, we just turn it one bolt at a time until we get the least amount of movement. But they'll vibrate like that. I've had some of them where we pull the drive shaft out of the rear and put it in four-wheel drive and drive it, and there's no vibration, so we know it's in that drive line back there, either the drive shaft or something in the pinion. And then when we go to measure it, we find out that sure enough, that pinion on the rear end is just bent. The pinion's fine, but the pinion flange is bent or cast a little crooked. So we end up replacing that or just moving it to a different position. You got to take the nut off and move it, which can be tricky at home to not get too much bind in that rear end because of the preload. But I think that's what's going on. You probably got that input to it. Something's going on in that drive shaft. And if you measure it with a dial indicator, you'll find it.
And he doesn't want to do anything until he finds out.
You want to find out for sure, because another rear end is going to fix it if that's what's going on. You get one that's working, but you don't want to have to put a whole rear end in it if you can just do something with the pinion.
We did have the pinion replaced. Would that still?
It could still do it. Yeah, if something's bent on there, you replace the pinion, but not the pinion flange, right, where the shaft bolts on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
did a whole rebuild on that.
Yeah, so that could be the problem. Your pinion's fine, but your pinion flange that the shaft bolts to could be cast a little funky or bent.
Something's off there.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Bob. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bob, what can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 2008 Jeep Wrangler, 83,000 miles, with actually multiple check engine light problems. To start out, it had a EGR valve that the dealer said needed to be replaced, but they wanted $700. So I said, I can do that myself. I've done that before. Replaced that, and about that time, the ABS, ESP, and BAS lights came on for the braking system, and I noticed a fluid leak by the left rear wheel. So had a new left rear axle seal in, a new left rear wheel speed sensor in, and new brakes. And then I got a U1417 code, which is an implausible left front wheel distance signal. Still had the ABS lights after doing the work on the back. So then I put a left front wheel sensor, speed sensor in, still have the ABS lights lit up. And then I am also getting a code when I first start the engine, it'll give me a P0137 and a P0138, which is the O2 sensor, high voltage and low voltage. And if I clear those codes, then I can drive 100 miles and they won't come back on. Then it might be the next morning when I first start up, those come on. And then also as I'm going down the road, the TPMS sensor will come on occasionally, last maybe for 10 seconds, and then goes out, and that's after I've checked that the
pressures are good.
Pressure was okay. Yep. And then finally, I still have a C1020, faulty left speed sensors, left rear, and a C2100, which is the battery voltage is low, circuit voltage below threshold. But this morning I checked the voltage parked, hadn't started up since yesterday, 12.5 volts, and running I've got about 14.7 volts.
I have a question before you go in here. He said it's an implausible code. That's his word, right? That's not the code.
That's what the code says.
The code says implausible?
Implausible reading just means it can't read it. It says the reading it's giving is not within the range.
It can't be.
If the reading is 0 to 250 and it's 251 or negative, then it's implausible.
The code is implausible.
Right.
Huh.
Or there's nothing there, like it's unplugged.
Huh.
Because a lot of those sensors will range 0 to 255 is their range. It's a digital range, and if it's over or under, it can't. It just says implausible.
And Bob, the show's only an hour at a time, so I don't know if we'll be able to.
I know. That's why I felt.
This is what you have. You could have something as simple as one module that has a problem, one wire that has a problem, causing a communication error, causing all these codes, and they may be all false codes. None of them may be real. And that's as seen by clearing the codes. They're gone for a while, and then they come back in 100 miles. They're not coming back immediately, so it's not seeing it right away. So something is causing that. But to find it on this is going to be a near impossibility, because if you take it into a shop, they're going to have to see the problem first. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to scan it. They're going to see all these codes. Next step is to write them all down, then clear them and drive it. And if they clear it and they drive it and everything works, they're going to say, okay, that's whatever it is for money. And you take it and it comes back on. They say, well, it was gone when we checked it. We'll do the same thing again. And then you spend some more money. It's going to be tricky until something, whatever in there that has failed, has become so bad that it just kills it and it gives you a definitive answer to whatever's bad, whether that be something in that front control module, which is a huge problem on these, in the engine computer, which can also be a problem on these, or a wire that's chafing somewhere, rubbing through, got some corrosion on it. That can happen. I've seen a few of those. But there's no one thing that causes all these problems on these Jeep that's common to all of them we see come in. There's so many different things it can be. And that's you got a big can of worms on that one to try to deal with. Unless you have a code that comes up every single time, like for an O2 sensor, and you can replace it and fix that problem, fixing all these things at once is going to be very difficult, and there's probably not going to be a lot of shops that want to even try it.
What would you start with if he brought it in?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, with that many and a communication error like that, we'd be like, no, we're going to pass.
Okay.
It'd just be it's too much without a definitive thing, because he's already done some trial stuff.
Right.
If they just said my lights just came on altogether, I'd be like, yeah, I'll give it a shot and see what's going on. But yeah, being that some things have already been replaced and repeat codes, we wouldn't even, it's just, and most shops right now are at the point where there's just not enough personnel to go after those kind of things.
But do you start with like the communications and see if
something is obvious? Yeah, because there might be something obvious, but with this one, it sounds like there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
That doesn't.
Okay. Well, it does run well.
Keep driving.
I can just keep driving it.
That's what I would do. I would, that's what I would definitely do. Bob, thanks very much for the call. To my detriment, don't get me wrong. We've all done that. Maybe have you even done that? Have you left a code that you know probably
not if I know I can fix it?
Okay,
but if it's something that I'm a little curious about, I don't. And I could run down a whole nother rabbit hole. But I've got an almost new Yukon that's got like 30,000 miles on it, and it's doing weird stuff now.
So you just kind of let it go until
these new vehicles there's so many of them that are just absolute crap. You spend $100,000 for one, and there's things. Look at all the engines that we see failed on stuff that's like 2 years old, but it's got 40,000 miles, so it's out of warranty. You got a 23 vehicle with a blown engine, and you're gonna have to spend $15,000 to replace it, and that's okay. It's not okay, and so many of them are failing now. But I got an electrical thing. My lights come on in my vehicle.
They slowly fade in?
They come on, like there's like you open a door, and then they go back off. So I plug the scanner in. It does this about every 2 hours. Plug the scanner in and watch it. When those lights come on, it says they're off.
Huh.
And then they So I'm like, oh, great, something else to. So you know what I did? I turned it off, turned the switch off.
Turn it off, and then when you need it, turn it back on.
And it's just one of those electrical things. I might reset it, and everything might work just fine. I don't know, but that kind of thing shouldn't be happening on a new vehicle.
Right. 866-594-4150. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Now we go to Ohio and talk to Mike here on the Under the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 2017 Chevy Cruze, and it's got a PO18C code, which is rail fuel pressure low. And so I'm an electrical engineer, and I do most of my own repairs, but this one's got me. So I replaced the sensor, $40, still the same. So I got my voltmeter and put pin leads on it and measured the voltage at the sensor, and it was 3.5 volts with the car running. So I think that's about normal. So I took the cover off. I got the wiring diagrams and took the cover off the connector to the ECM, put my pin voltmeter on the pin, the wire right where it goes into the pin into the ECM, 3.5 volts going into the ECM with the car running. And I read 0.0 PSIG on the OBD. And so I replaced the ECM. It's got a good voltage going in, but it reads 0. I $130. I had to wait a long time to get it. Put it in, same thing. Still got the code. And I try to reset it. It comes back. And actually, one time when I reset it, it put me in limp mode and brake and steering assist. If you've ever done that, you can't steer and you can't brake.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at. I'm driving to the Chevy dealer right now. I got a 1 o'clock appointment.
You probably have another system causing that as a false code. There's something else interfering with that reading, because you did exactly right, way more than what we normally hear. You went to the sensor, you read it's got a 5-volt signal out, and it's got a return going back, whatever that sensor is, bringing that down, brought it to about 3.5 volts. You know, that's looking normal through there. So then you went to the computer and tested to make sure the reading at the sensor was the same at the computer. There you go. If we would have read that reading at the computer and known that that sensor was good then and the wiring was good, we would have replaced the computer if the computer's lying to us saying it says 0 when it's not. So we know that something's going on. And then I would have gone a little further and said...
I checked the ground wire going to the ECM too.
Yep, power and ground.
Make sure the ground was okay.
Make sure your power and voltage, your voltage to it, power and ground, both on all the pins, that because it's got one ground but it's got several powers, that they're all reading correctly. And usually you'd have another system that was down, but you'll have to look at every... Like we've said earlier on the show, you look at every sensor going to that computer and see if another sensor is off, but it's not throwing a code. So if you've got, let's say you have a temperature reading of 175 degrees, but you just started the engine, so you know it's not that hot, but it's not throwing a code, then something else is going on. There's something else in that system causing that reading to be false. It's just, hopefully they'll be able to figure that out for you, that they've seen it. I have not seen that in our shop with this model vehicle yet.
Yeah, so I looked at all the other readings from all the other sensors on my OBD, and they all looked pretty normal, you know. So I just don't know where to go. So I hope I got a good electrical guy at this dealer.
Yep. Well, you've done the right thing so far.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That's always nice to hear, that so far you've done the right thing. Is there, how much of it, and I'm not being facetious, how much of it is getting the right guy, especially when it comes to something like this? It really is, isn't it?
All of it. I mean, I don't want to say this, but what if I took you to the dealership and they hired you today and said, here's a scanner, Chris, go to it. Or anybody, you know, just pick anybody that, a tire technician or a guy that's great at pulling engines and putting them in, and he can do them in, you know, half of the book time. And I throw him over in the electrical bay.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. He'll go, I did my best. And they'll go, okay, give me $200 and whatever. I mean, so they have good guys in these places. Usually they're good enough. Most of these dealers will say, I don't have a guy to do it.
Right. Yeah.
You're
That's
going to
the
have
other
to find
thing.
a different, because today I don't have the guy.
Yeah.
We'll make you an appointment when we do. They've got great training.
866-594-4150. By the way, wiring diagrams,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things in my life that I wish I had learned to read and do.
I love them when they're right. I had one yesterday that was wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was wrong because there was a build date switch on the vehicle.
Oh.
And they only provide, the Mitchell system and all data only provide the one build date. They don't provide the earlier build date. So you have to go back to the year before to get the right ones. And the pins are backwards between those 2 years.
Even like I have a thing at home that has an electrical issue, and I looked it up and it gave me the complete solution online, but I can't read it. Let's go to Georgia and talk to Jeff. Jeff, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 02 Chevy Silverado with a 4.8 in it, and it's got a little over 200,000 miles on it. And maybe a year and a half ago, I developed a problem with it using coolant. And I read that there's a run of castings of the heads on these things that have a spongy spot, and I kind of assumed that's where it was getting in. So I did one of those little kits where you check with the black light, and sure enough, some coolant was getting in the oil. So I used a bottle of K-Seal, and it seemed to seal it up really well for about a year and a half. And then subsequently, I had a water pump replaced on it. So it's got fresh coolant in it, and it's all of a sudden started leaking again. It's not a very fast leak.
More
I'm
K-Seal.
kind of wondering, is it okay to try another bottle of K-Seal?
Yep. Yeah, because
Okay.
it seals current leaks and prevents future leaks. And if you use the K-Seal Ultimate, it's got 33% more sealing power.
Than original
So I mean,
K-Seal.
yeah. So it's a good strong sealer, and it will prevent those future leaks if it's in the system. So if you've got a further leak now that's developed on that head, which they typically do on those when that happens, and you've replaced a water pump, it's a new leak. So you need K-Seal.
Okay.
You're not doubling up on the K-Seal. You're just replacing what you took out, and that should help that. It's perfect for a small leak like that. As I was like, I would use it on my own. I was like, I'm not pulling and putting a head on this on an 02 Silverado. I'm going to run the K-Seal in it on that small leak. So give that a shot.
And I had someone ask me just the other day, Jeff, thanks very much for the call. I've been gonna ask that question for a while. If I get a coolant replacement or I do that, you gotta make sure that you do it again. And
Yes.
I've noticed that also. I had the conversation the other day with someone who said, doesn't that once you do that, isn't that the end of life fix? And no, that used
No.
to be the case with sealers like
Yes.
this, but
This
30
is not.
years ago. This
Yeah.
is not that. 866-594-4150. Are you all right over there?
Yeah,
Let's
we
go
just
to-
need this one and one more, and
let's go
we've
to-
done it.
Let's go to Nebraska and talk to James. James, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hey, yes, glad to talk to you guys. Love your show. I got a 2010 Chevy Impala, and I've always ran conventional oil in there. And talked to a father-in-law, and he was saying that he only uses like a blended oil or like the what do you call it there? The synthetic stuff,
Synthetic
the full
blend.
synthetics, and and I'm just curious, can I actually just start using full synthetic, or
We would not
what would
do
happen
that.
if I did?
Yeah, I mean, while it provides greater protection, it also has more uniform, smaller molecules for that protection. And instead of that roller coaster up and down of molecule size that you would get, the protection of it. Picture it the way it's going to leak. More than likely in a car of this age with that many miles, if you go to full synthetic, you're going to develop a leak, and it's going to clean out all the gunk that's preventing the leaks around the seals and things. And if you switch back to the non-synthetic, it won't stop leaking. So if you've been running a synthetic blend this whole time, don't switch. I would stick with what you got. Just 3 months, 3,000 miles on the oil changes instead of going to a longer one with synthetic, and just drive it. I think you'll be better off. This is a very strong engine that tends to last a lot of miles on a synthetic blend. I've got some customers with almost 400,000 miles on that Impala engines running synthetic blend. 3 months, 3,000.
Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, that clarifies it.
James, thanks very much for the call. And I want to point out, too, we're talking about this case, a 15-year-old car that's been run not on full synthetic. This what you said isn't a blanket statement at all.
No, if it's a new car, yeah, go with that synthetic.
866-594-4150.
I just need one more call, and if there's somebody local wants to call in, I'll give them a hoodie. One more call, and we break the record.
Break the record. We have a minute and a half now. Now you're really pouring.
We just got to get them on the line.
And that
just
counts?
like a fish, it counts.
That'll
Once we got them on the line, once they get their question asked.
And then what, Russ? Then
Doug's
you're just
have
chasing
like 14
records.
calls in a row. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, the after show is going to last for
Well,
an
once
hour and a
Shannon
half.
gets, we won't do it. So. Yeah, no, this is the after show too. We always count them all, but now we're just going to count the.
And now we're not going to make
Nothing?
it. Oh yeah, here they come.
Oh, here we go.
But now we don't have time to answer the question. I mean, we'll get them on.
We'll get the question and then we'll answer it later. But we just got to get them on the line.
Every single line.
We'll blame it on
is
Doug. He's
lit
slow.
up
Is it
now? Every
Whoa,
single one.
You're right. They're full.
You're gonna have. Yeah, I think you're gonna. The hoodie budget's gonna be broken for today.
I'll give away a couple.
And now we really don't have time to take one.
Well, we'll do them in the after show, but I'll give away the first 2 callers that called.
Okay. I knew when you started.
That proves they're listening. Look at that. It went from green to red. Boom.
I knew as soon as you started, this was going to be a disaster.
All right, Joe's got a 2010 Frontier.
And we have 20 seconds. So, Joe, hold on. Stay right where you are. Oh, if I answer it, does it count? How about that?
Yeah, it counts.
Joe, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, hold on. So
You're the first hoodie winner, and we're going to take you right after the break.
broke the record as far as Russ is
21 phone calls.
That'll do it for the Under the Hood show. You can watch the show on YouTube. Don't forget, thanks for joining us. Until next time, find us at underthehoodshow.com. All right, Joe, this is the after show.
21.
What can we do for you, Joe?
About a month ago, I called in. I had starting issues, and I had a brand new battery, and Russ told me to change the switch underneath the dash, and I did that. However, as soon as it started getting cold again, I have the starting issues, and the minute you touch it with a booster pack or whatever, it starts right up. So it's kind of a chasing it around thing with the starting issue again.
And you put a new switch in there?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It was starting fine until it got cold again.
Yeah. So on this, you're going to need to get yourself a multimeter, voltmeter, just a cheap $20 one even. Go down to the starter. You're going to check the big hot wire from the battery right at the starter. From there to the ground of the starter at the engine block there. Just check right there and see what your voltage is, and then have somebody turn that key and see if it stays at battery voltage, like 12.8, whatever it is there. Make sure it stays up there. If it does, then go from that same ground to that little small wire that activates the starter. Make sure you've got battery voltage there when that key is in the crank position. If you do not have that voltage there, you need to follow that line up backwards all the way up to the switch until you find out what part is not working. But if you do have battery voltage down there on both those wires, when you're in the crank position, that starter's bad. And a lot of times a bad starter will show itself in the cold.
Okay, yeah. When I go to start it, there's almost like a little hesitation. And you kind of hear
like a click
noise before it actually turns over.
Yeah, that could be the starter.
And then it's okay. And then there is a ground wire that's on the exhaust that's off, and it goes to a heat shield. But that's just like an O2 sensor, isn't it?
Yeah, that shouldn't matter for the starting.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Joe, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We are, the calls are coming in so fast and furious now that I'm not sure where we're going next because Doug is talking to people calling in. Let's see what he's doing there. Ooh, I could bring up his camera, couldn't I? We could watch him field these calls. Going to Paul next. Let's do that. Let's go here and talk to Paul from Iowa. You're on the Under the Hood show. Paul, what can we do for you?
Well, I've got a question about rear tire wear, toe versus hand.
Okay.
Oh, are you?
Now there's a lot of these new cars coming out. Just
You're dropping in and out there, Paul. Hold on a second. Your cell is dropping in and out. Let's try it again. Start over. Yeah, you're dropping in and out. I'm gonna let's see.
Maybe he'll call back.
Yeah, call back if you can. And this is this is all behind the scenes. Doug, on that address there, there's a issue with the street. I think I know where it would go, but we'll see. All right, let's try this again. Paul, are you there now? Try again.
Yes, I'm here now. Yep,
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I think your phone is just you're in a bad spot there, Paul. Sorry about that. We got you though. We got your hoodie coming. That'll be all right. Let's
call
see
next week for the tire call.
Tire call. Yeah, we kind of got the gist of
he
the
was
call,
asking about a camber and this and that. If you've got tires that are towed in, like put your 2 feet straight forward and then you put your toes towards each other, they're towed in.
Pigeon toed.
Yeah, they will wear, when they're pushed in like that, they're going to wear the outside edge of the tire all the way around or featherize them really bad. And if they're towed out, put your toes away from each other and your heels in, they're going to wear the inside edge of the tire because it's scraping it as you go down the road.
And camber, is that the back and forth?
Yeah, so the camber on that
is vertical.
If the camber, it can pull to one side and also cause tire wear on one side or both, depending on how bad the camber is off as well. So all these things are something that a alignment shop needs to go through on a car if you've got any signs of tire wear before they get too bad.
Yeah, because it can go bad fast.
Oh, yeah.
You can wear out a tire real quick.
Oh, yeah, like within 100 miles if it's bad enough.
All right. Let's see what Doug's doing over there. I blame, by the way, Russ, this is 100% your fault.
Probably.
I believe that this is all on you.
We'll go back to Barrett Jackson real quick for about a minute. They had a couple really cool cars there. The Gilligan's Island car they had, the little golf cart, they auctioned that for like over 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
But they had one I thought I'd only seen when I was a kid, and it was the Bob Hope car. It was actually the face of Bob Hope made out of fiberglass on a golf cart for the Bob Hope Open, I believe it was, for the golf tournament back in the 70s. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Got
that
big
sold
old
for,
giant.
I think that sold for $60,000.
I can see that. It had to sell to somebody that either somebody very young that just thought, hey, that's a crazy looking cart, or somebody that is old enough to remember it.
Yeah.
I guess for me, and I mean, I'm not really that old yet, but for me, I'd be like, hey, that'd be cool and fun.
Had to be, here's what I think it had to be a collector like the guy who had it.
Yeah.
It has to be, because the one of the collections going up this week, is all TV cars and movie cars. It's a huge collection that a guy had accumulated, and now the whole collection is going, or a lot of it.
I could see myself, but I don't see, when we're at Barrett Jackson, I look at these cars and I go, nah. There's just a few of them that I'm like, I'd buy that. I could, if I had like unlimited funds, I'd buy it. But I could see myself with that, if I had that kind of money and the room to store it, buying an entire movie car collection. If they had 100 cars, if they had 200 cars and they were all from movies and I thought they were movies I grew up with, I'd be like, give me the whole thing.
Yeah, I could
if I had that kind of money, I just I get the Knight Rider car, I got the Back to the Future car, I got a Dukes of Hazzard car, I got I just love that. Beverly Hillbillies. That'd be just so fun to have them.
Let's talk to Bob. You're on the Under the Hood show. Bob, what can we do for you?
Hi, I got a 01 Grand Marquis that when you start it cold, probably jumps up to 2,500 RPM, and then it comes back down to idle. Is that normal, or?
Yes and no. It should jump up to a certain point, and then so you'll start it up. Typically, they'll go up to about 1,600 or so for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then idle down pretty quickly. If it's cold, like let's say 70 degrees or less, it'll idle up a little higher for a while, and then it'll slowly come down as the engine temp goes up. You should be able to put it in gear like 900 RPM. Still should be able to put it in drive or reverse without a big bang and driving away on its own. But if it goes up that high, you probably have a dirty idle air control system, and I would get some Berryman B12 cleaner, and I would clean out that throttle body on that, which will also clean out the idle air control motor. You might have to even replace the idle air control valve on it, but I'd clean that out, and then we disconnect the battery for just a couple minutes, on that to let it reset, hook it back up, start it up, and let it run until it's completely warm and make sure that idle comes down. But a dirty, sticking idle air control valve will cause it to go up higher than it'll exaggerate that RPM. It'll be higher than normal and sometimes lower than normal. So that's where we would start with that.
All right. You guys also helped me fix my lights on that. It was, I called you earlier, and it was the lighting control module that was shot.
Perfect.
Oh, wow. Okay, perfect.
We like to hear it when we got something fixed. So
Yeah, that's definitely.
stay on the line, and Doug will get you a hoodie there.
Oh, look at Bob getting the double call in and the hoodie.
Yeah.
Good day for Bob.
You got a fix and a hoodie.
866-594-4150. Let's try Paul again. Paul, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Well, I got my internet fixed now, so I can talk to you.
All right.
Okay. Camber versus tow. These newer cars don't have adjustable camber arms, and seeing a lot of rear tire wear because of this.
Yep. We've seen that. Like Mazda's one of the worst ones for it, and they've now come out with a kit that will allow you to put adjustable arms on it, adjustable bolts and things like that. So a lot of these cars, there have been aftermarket kits made, and if you talk to an alignment shop that does a lot of cars, they should be able to tell you if that kit has come out. Because like when I was at a shop that did alignments all the time, we were doing, I was doing a dozen, sometimes 15 a day. And when I do them, I kept getting these catalogs it was before internet.
Sure.
But the catalogs would come and they'd be like, hey, look, we've got a new package of adjustable camber bolts now for front, rear, different things for slots, different shims, all sorts of stuff. But you're right. The factory is good.
The factory has admitted to it.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not perfect. They're like right at the edge of the wear limit. So any change at all from a pothole and you're done. You've got to actually physically bend something to get it back. And it's not good. They should be putting adjustable stuff on all these cars.
And Tesla's newest stuff, they didn't learn from their old. The new ones are even non-adjustable.
Yeah.
So, and what they do is they cheat the toe to make up for the camber.
Well, and that just changes
that,
and it also changes the handling on it. But you got a heavy car like that, you can there's even more issues. Does this one have the ride control suspension on it too?
Oh, many of them do.
Yeah, but does this one that has the problem with the camber? Because that makes it worse.
They all have it.
Okay.
They all have it.
Yeah, because when you got a ride control and you have the camber problem, it makes it even worse. Because as the thing goes up and down, it really gets weird.
Paul, thanks very much for the call. All right, let's talk to Brad. You're on the Under the Hood show. Brad, what can we do for you?
Hey, I have a Berkeley Classic, 03 Chevy Impala.
Okay.
Gold. Is it gold?
Hey, yeah. Hey, I have two of them that are gold. I drive 120 miles of gravel every day, delivering mail, and that filter always plugs up full of dirt right behind the gas tank cap, so it takes forever to fill up your tank.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is there any cheater way to bypass that, or eliminate it, or?
Yes and no.
Is this an off-air call?
Well, I can't do it for you, and a shop isn't going to do it for you, but I've seen a number of our rural mail carrier customers do this. So they got a vent valve from a truck instead of one from the car. So it still vents the same. It was the same size, but the truck ones come with a hose now that plugs into the vent valve, and the hose goes all the way up to the front and runs up very high.
Okay.
Or into the air box where the air cleaner is, and it pulls vented air through there instead of pulling it out of the atmosphere back there and pulling dirt in, which is great. But they don't figure a car needs it because a car's not an off-road vehicle, right?
Right.
No. I would bet you to venture there's probably more. What do you think, Chris? Are there more cars that drive a couple miles of gravel a day because they live on rural, or pickup trucks.
Yeah, you're right.
Because when you look at the farms around
passenger
here,
vehicles,
lots of passenger cars that drive up and down those gravel roads every day.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get something like that where it's pulling the vent from a cleaner source. You'll see there's a vent filter on the side of that canister valve. That's what you need to replace with something else. You don't have to replace the whole valve, but you need to take that filter off and somehow retrofit a like a 3/4 inch heater hose to it, run it up where it's not dirty to a clean air source, like up front in the engine compartment, somewhere where it's pulling clean air to that tank.
Because when they clean it out, they take about a cup of dirt out.
Oh yeah, and that'll eventually get all the way through the lines.
6 months.
Yeah, that is. I'd never thought of a snorkel for the vent valve. That's a great idea. And yeah, there should be like a mail carrier exemption. If you're
police cars, emergency vehicles, most of them, when you look underneath them, do not have evaporative emission systems because they sit and idle for so long.
Okay.
There's no evap system on them.
Okay.
I've had some come through our shop with no catalytic converters or evap systems. They were exempt, depending on, not all of them are that way, but some of them are that way. And we're like, wait a second, why doesn't this car have converters on it or an evap system? There's no emission controls on this car because it's a police car.
Okay.
Now, a lot of those are not sold at the auction.
Sure.
You can buy those cars at auction after, but not those. The emissions-free ones are basically, no, they're put back into public surface. They're scrapped. They're crushed.
Okay.
They're not, you've seen some of the stuff we
Sure.
have, and they're not to be resold. Now the engines are fine to sell and transmissions, but
I got you.
not
Okay.
the whole car for daily public use anymore because it's not considered an emergency service vehicle.
Can you put that
Ambulance
stuff
same
back
way.
on?
You could,
Or it's
but
not
it's
cost
designated
effective?
as not sellable.
Okay.
It's the title would be for use in that type of thing only. But
Once it's marked,
ambulances
it's marked.
right?
Okay.
And an ambulance, because of the heat that builds up when they sit and idle for a long time, a lot of those are emissions free as well because they
Okay.
would cause more detriment, and you wouldn't be able to go save people because the car would die.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good now. I think we're done. We did it.
What's that one on there? Is he getting
No, that was the one we just did.
Oh, was it?
So we're good to
Oh,
go.
it is.
All right. All right.
Well, that's 24 calls.
Okay. All right. I think that'll do it for the after show
I'm-
too.
I think I'm done talking.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for all those calls.
Yeah.
I love it the way we know people are listening because we
Mhm.
said call and boom, and they went up and we gave a few hoodies away.
That's
so-
right. So there you go. And if you're still watching on YouTube, like it and do all the stuff. Subscribe. And there has been, and this is a common thing with YouTube, where it gets a little laggy with the audio and the video.
Yeah.
And it happens on the live feeds mostly, although it does happen once in a while where you have to back out and go back in. When this processes, once I hit this button, it's going to stop
And
and
it'll
it'll
go
start to process. And
process up to HD from SD, and then
it'll catch itself.
Whether
It'll
it's
catch up with itself probably.
today or it may take a while for them to
Yeah.
catch up because it did it the whole show.
Yeah. So there you go.
YouTube.
All right. Thanks, everybody.